Hello, everyone. I am back. Yes, I know that I have been on a sabbatical in terms of reviews for the last several months. I might make a video where I just talk more about why that is, but I also don't know if necessarily that's needed to be made. I feel as though it's kind of self explanatory. It's just been really hard for me to make reviews the last several months. And I've been challenged a little bit in my kind of idea of like, do I really want to keep doing this? And it's a little tough, you know. I feel as though I've gotten out a lot of reviews that I wanted to make, and now at this point, I'm a little bit like, do I really want to sit down in front of the camera and talk about certain things? I mean, there's certain things I have to talk about, and that will never be a question in terms of albums that are being released, but in terms of just general kind of more mainstream stuff, I'm sort of like, do I really need to talk about this? But I've been putting off making a Mary Poppins Returns review for several weeks because I actually did see the movie on opening day and on the 19th here in the US. And I really felt ultimately I had to make a video for it because it's one of my favorite movies of 2018. And the music and the movie is just everything. I just was so excited and hopeful in terms of anticipation for this film. And I just felt I could not let this pass without filming a review. So I will say that this is a film I definitely recommend that you all go out and see, and I think it'll still be in the theaters for quite a bit now. I'm excited to have it on DVD. This is something that's kind of like rare for me because it's like, oh, I actually want to physically own movies that I like this much for posterity, to show them these and be like, look at this. I am a huge original 1964 Mary Poppins fan. I grew up in love with the songs, with all of the dances, the choreography, the sets. It's a movie that is so timeless and so classic. And I was very concerned when I heard about this, what I thought was just a remake at the time. And obviously, Disney has remake fever right now. And for better or for worse, we're getting a ton of remakes. And it can be a bit of a scary thing. At first, you're really excited, and then you're like, oh God, what are they going to do? Are they going to completely ruin this? I talk about that in my Beauty and the Beast review, which I will link in the description in case anyone is interested in hearing me talk about another Disney film that was remade recently. And Mary Poppins Returns is nice because it's a sequel. It's not trying to completely overshadow the original film. Everything about it is very nostalgic in the way it was created, and that is a huge, huge like nod to the original in a positive way instead of a disappointing kind of factor. Rob Marshall, the director, who has directed other musicals such as Into the West, with Emily Blunt featured as well as Meryl Streep, who are both in this film. He obviously has a love for the original film that carries through into the way he directed and designed this one. And that is just so heartwarming to see because obviously it's set 25 years after the original, where the two kids, Jane and Michael Banks, are grown up and are played by Emily Mortimer and Ben Whishaw. And they come off as very much of a married couple at the beginning. You have to kind of remember they're not married, they're brother and sister. But they're going through hard times, as everyone is, the Great Slump, as they call it, the Great Depression. And they're about to lose their house. And there's a line in the film that was a little too real for me where Ben Whishaw says, a painting is not going to give any money. So I was like, yes. Because he's supposed to be an artist. And I was like, that hit a little too close to home for me. But yeah, so they have to find ways to save money and to save the house. And the children are then sort of, through their own escapades and with Mary Poppins, in her sort of prudish kind of upper crusty sort of way, guiding them along on these journeys, but at the same time not taking any credit for them. And Emily Blunt is the star, obviously. She carries across the demeanor and the character of Mary Poppins beautifully, but it's her own invention. It's not necessarily Julie Andrews, it's her own take on Mary Poppins. It's not her trying to impersonate her. And obviously the costuming and everything is just so exquisite and detailed. So there's a lot of attention to recreating original sets, like recreating the original house. I love the fact that they have the men who are with the cannon that blast off at the specific time, and the whole house shakes, and all these things that are from the original that they kept. Julie Walters even is a wonderful character, just sort of to provide that sort of domestic intrigue. But I definitely think that all of the cast shines here. Meryl Streep's role as Topsy, I've heard some people say is great, but is it really necessary for the film? Because it's a lengthier film. It does run over 2 hours, and some people are like, this could have been cut. And I'm like, no, you can't, obviously you can't cut Meryl Streep, but I think that the point of this part of the film is that it's nonsensical. You know, there's a scene in the first film where, you know, they go and visit someone and the father is up on the ceiling laughing, and they have that whole I love to laugh scene. And one could argue that that scene was kind of pointless in the original film. And that's the point of Mary Poppins, is there is this sort of pointless frivolity and pointless sort of nonsensical humor that just perfectly fits in the world and atmosphere of Mary Poppins. And they needed that in this film. They needed them to go and journey and find some weird character, because they do go on a lot of journeys. They go inside a ceramic Royal Doulton bowl, which is a beautiful visual treat for the eyes, mainly because they bring back hand-drawn animation, which when I saw in the trailer just got me so satisfied and happy, because that's something that is a dying art, and I would love to see Disney do more with, because they've just thrown that in the towel and they're like, everything's going to be computer animation now. I don't necessarily agree with their choices. I know it's stylistically, it's not in vogue anymore, and I know that it might be a little more difficult to do hand-drawn, but CGI isn't easy either. So I don't necessarily, you know, I'm just so happy that this film knew the direction it needed to go, and it knew the time period it needed to be reminiscent of, so it didn't get too big for its britches, so to speak, and try and be completely 21st century. I mean, just in the opening title cards, you see the paintings that are used to deliver the credit, which is a very old-fashioned stylistic movie credit sequence. And the fact that it started that way was just like a pleasant sort of warming welcome to a sequel that actually feels like it was made in the same time period, and at the same time, you know, it's updated, it's its own new kind of thing, but the special effects that are used in this film don't feel too heavy-handed, at least to me. They're beautiful. They're just visual feasts when they go into the ocean and the bathtub. All of these beautiful visual thematic elements pulled together to make a wonderland of a piece, something that Alice in Wonderland, the 2010 Disney film, failed to capture, which is something, it's a shame, because Alice in Wonderland is my other favorite old-time Disney film. And Mary Poppins Returns does right what that film does wrong, in my opinion, just because of the fact that it kept this sort of classic flavor to it, and it didn't try and go too overboard with the CGI. There's also a very pleasurable cameo towards the end, which we all know Dick Van Dyke shows up. It's a very kind of exciting thing. He doesn't play Lin-Manuel Miranda's character, who is a leery lamplighter, who is an enjoyable replacement for Dick Van Dyke for sure. His role is mainly geared towards that one lamplighting scene, which is iconic. And definitely feels like a Broadway show come to life. And so I'm definitely in love with all the musical numbers. I mean, some more than others. But that lamplighting scene is just so well choreographed and so well designed. And his Cockney accent is just as, like Dick Van Dyke's, it's like over dramatic. It's like too much, and it's not quite right, but I think it's perfect in that regard. However, there is a scene where he does a song that turns a little bit more into a rap, and that's where he's really in his element, called A Cover Is Not the Book. And I didn't really understand a single thing he was saying during that scene, but it definitely came across more his style. So for people who are fans of Lin-Manuel Miranda, they will definitely appreciate that. I haven't seen so much of his work. I have not seen Hamilton, so, you know, that was sort of the first time I was really introduced to that sort of style delivery from him, but he's very talented. What else can I say? If I need to pick one scene that I felt like dragged on a little too long for me, it would have been the scene where the kids are like kidnapped by these animated animals in the fairground section of the Royal Doulton Ball scene. That scene felt like it dragged on a bit, and I sort of felt like a little bit distracted by whatever was going on, and I wasn't really paying attention. I get they wanted some high stakes drama in there, but it also felt like a little out of place, because it was like, The film's drama was never that intense. Like, you could feel towards the end, like, the need for them to save their house. Like, that was there. The antagonist, Colin Firth, although he was a little bit of a one-dimensional villain, was the real kind of like a demon figure of this piece. But the scene with the animals just did feel like it got a little carried away with itself, literally, because it goes off on a railway track for like eons. So if I had to choose anything to sort of edit or tweak, it would have been that scene. As far as the music is concerned, now I talk about this in my 25 best songs of 2018 video. The Places Where the Lost Things Go is the strongest song on the soundtrack, but that doesn't mean that this soundtrack is not strong. Some people are saying, oh, these songs are not as iconic as the original, and I'm like, well, there's a reason for that. We've been sitting for 50 years with these original songs, and they've grown into our pop culture and into our subconscious as these things, these monolithic entities. You haven't had enough time to sit with the new songs to give them a chance. And you know, not everything is going to be Mark Shaman, who does the musical score. Not everything is going to usurp the original, and that's okay. I just want something that is a worthy successor. Sometimes the original is always the best, and you can't top that. And that's okay. But if you're making a sequel, make it just as good. Do it like with Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. You know, like don't necessarily usurp, but make it just as good. And I think that, you know, in terms of the music that we get in this film, like the closing song, Nowhere to Go But Up, which features Angela Lansbury, which is such a pleasant delight to the ears and eyes to see her on screen in such a role as a cameo at the end, is such a classic Disney feel-good song that has everything that you would expect from a movie musical for Disney. I think everything about the musical score is the right like flavor of absurd, the right flavor, the right amount of child-friendly, the right flavor of sophisticated to blend together and catchy, not to mention. People were like, these songs aren't catchy, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I mean, can you imagine that? It's been stuck in my head for like days since I last saw the movie. So I definitely see the soundtrack as holding on its own, and I included The Places Where the Lost Things Go as one of the best songs of 2018 for me because it is just such a beautiful ballad slash lullaby that is sung to the children, which of course emphasizes Emily Blunt's beautiful voice. So overall, it is a delight of a film. It's full of magic, it's full of wonder, it's got painstaking attention to detail and nostalgic reminiscing going all across the board for this film, and I love that about it. And I don't really think that any of the cast members, besides maybe Colin Firth, were that vapid or not needed in this film or that didn't bring anything to the table. And, you know, I have very little complaints, honestly. It's one of the best films of 2018 for me, and I'm so happy that it wasn't a dud because several of these other Disney remakes that we've gotten, Christopher Robin was cute, actually. I never reviewed that, but I actually enjoyed that film. But it didn't do, you know, that well. And I'm very curious, but also worried about a lot of the upcoming ones that we have coming out, like Dumbo, Aladdin, and The Lion King, which are all coming out this year. So we will see where those go. But so far, Disney's sort of been hit and miss with these remakes. So it's a gamble, but each one is helmed by a different director and a different team, and they all have different ideas and visions for what these films will be. But luckily for Mary Poppins, we're safe in that department. So I hope you see this film if you haven't already. And I hope you all have a happy new year, as it is the first of 2019. And do expect to see some more videos from me in the coming months. I'm going to be, you know, continuing to review new stuff that I have to review. And I'm also going to still continue to go back and do older music reviews because I know I've been like slacking on that for several months. But I do plan on getting back into that. So I hope you enjoyed. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you in the next review. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, love, and light. Bye.